Marital property is anything acquired during the marriage with a few limited exceptions. So if something is inherited during the marriage or something is received as a gift during the marriage, that may be considered non-marital property. And there's a few other limited exceptions that apply, but for the most part, anything acquired during the marriage belongs to the marriage. So this is where people often have a pronoun problem when they come into the office. In other words, they'll come into my office and they say, well, it's my car, or it's my checking account, it's my this, it's their that. The reality is we don't look at title when we're identifying whether something is marital property. We simply ask, was this item acquired during the marriage? If the answer is yes, we will then ask, does an exception apply? Most of the time it does not, so therefore it becomes marital property. So simply because it's in your name or simply because it's in your spouse's name does not make that non-marital property. If it's acquired during the marriage, it's presumed to be marital property. Non-marital property is anything acquired before the marriage, or there's some limited exceptions during the marriage. So if somebody's claiming something is non-marital property, they always have the burden of proof, meaning you have to come with the facts and the evidence that support your position. If you're claiming something is non-marital, saying that you inherited something during the marriage, you have to show the documentation and evidence to support that claim. There's also something that can be done where you have property acquired before the marriage. Let's say you own a house before the marriage. You could actually sell that property during the marriage and purchase new property with those funds and have that be considered non-marital property. So even though it's acquired during the marriage, it's from the proceeds of a non-marital asset. So as long as you don't commingle them with marital funds, that can remain non-marital property. It's really important. Never commingle things together. And a lot of times people say, well, I used my money to pay this off. If you're talking about your paycheck that is acquired during the marriage, that's marital money. Anything acquired before the marriage is considered non-marital property. So if you keep an asset separate throughout your marriage, and in other words, you don't commingle it into each other's names, that remains non-marital property even after the divorce. As we talked about, non-marital property being gifts and inheritance. It's really important that you keep that paper trail if you're trying to make that proof in the later date. So a lot of times when people receive a gift, they don't always get a receipt with it. The best you can do is try and create the facts and circumstances and explain that away. So in other words, if somebody gave you a gift, under what circumstances was that done? Do we have any sort of proof that it was given as a gift? If it was an inheritance, there's probably a paper trail that can support how you receive that information. It's important if you're trying to assert something as non-marital, you got to gather the facts and the evidence to support that claim. So commingling of non-marital and marital assets, that happens all too often because people don't think things through. So in other words, let's say that you have some money in a bank account and you have kept it separate. You had it before the marriage. Let's say there's $10,000 in there. Commingling happens when you take marital funds and mix it together. So some people make this mistake. So let's say this example, you've got $10,000 in a savings account. And then during the marriage, you take out $5,000 from that account to do some home renovations or go on a vacation. You then take marital money and put it back into that account. Let's say you put $4,000 back in the account. So in this situation, we have $9,000 in the account. $5,000 would be clearly non-marital. $4,000 may be marital. So in other words, if you took marital funds and put it in that account, it's now not clear what those funds are. Then let's say you take out another $2,000 later, and then you put another $4,000 back in. When you start taking money out, then putting money back in, it starts losing its identity. And when you lose the identity enough, all of a sudden, when you can no longer tell what's non-marital, the entire thing becomes marital property. So if you're concerned at all about non-marital and marital property mixing, it's really important. Don't mix anything together. So keep them in a separate account. Don't add to it in any way from your marital accounts. You can take money out, but don't add to it.